Last week, late in the evening, I was walking home from a friend's house. It's about a 20-minute walk from her place to mine. We live in a small and safe town, and I've walked this distance countless times at all hours, never really experiencing any danger. First, you walk through my friend's little neighborhood, and the rest of the way there's nothing but woods surrounding on both sides of the road. This isn't a problem for me. The woods don't scare me. People scare me. I feel safe in the woods. I feel like the woods are on my side, despite all the scary woods stories I've read on here. When I had gotten past the last houses in the neighborhood, I noticed a man walking far behind me. I didn't really see him, but I did hear him. The roads were very icy, and it sounded like this man was wearing crampons. I apologize if that's the wrong word. It's called isbroder in my language, and I couldn't really find any good translation. My first thought was, I should really get a pair of those myself. These roads are slippery as hell. I didn't like having this man walk behind me. He didn't feel familiar to me. So few people live in this area, and I know all of them. We don't take kindly to strangers. I could hear the man speeding up, and I started to get a very bad feeling about him. Here on No Sleep and Let's Not Meet, you people go on about how you always have to trust your instincts and listen to your guts. Good advice, yes, but here's the thing. I'm a very paranoid person because I have a lot of anxiety. I get bad vibes every single day. I always assume the worst about people, and I don't trust anyone except my family and close friends. If I were always to trust my gut, I would never leave my house again. But I have ran from people before. Hid from them, looking like a complete idiot. I don't care. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to do the same thing this time as well. Better safe than sorry, I tell myself, as I take off into the woods. I won't be able to outrun this man on this slippery road, so my best option is to hide. As soon as I go into the woods, I hear the crampon guy running behind me. So I was right, for once. My instincts were true. I didn't go very far into the woods, but I soon found a good hiding place. I hid in a big bush surrounded by other bushes and trees. Lots of vegetation and no paths in sight. Maybe this doesn't sound ideal, but it was completely dark, the moon being the only source of light, so I felt hidden. Soon after, I heard this man again. I could barely see him through the bushes. He was looking in every direction, looking for me. And then this man says something. I swear to God, this man says,
"You shouldn't have done that. He's just a boy. Poor little feller."
What the heck? I became utterly terrified by this, but at the same time, I felt the urge to laugh out loud. You see, I recognized this from a South Park episode. The man said it with the same voice Cartman does. I'm a big South Park fan, and I've laughed many times at this scene. Now, why the hell is this man following me into the woods and saying this shit? Either this guy was playing a prank, taking it way too far, or he was batshit crazy. I decided on the latter, and I remained hidden in the bushes. It was a very strange feeling, being both terrified and humored at the same time. Shortly afterwards, there were some noises further into the woods, and the man immediately ran in the direction of the sounds, thank goodness. It was probably just an animal, but my paranoid self thought that maybe there was another crazy person out there. That makes 3 crazy people in the woods tonight, I thought, feeling the urge to laugh again. When the man had left, I took out my phone. I had one missed call from my friend. Thankfully, I always have my phone on silence mode, since the phone ringing and the thought of people wanting something from me gives me anxiety. I texted my dad that I had a minor emergency, and that he needed to come get me right away. I didn't know exactly where I was, so I told him to park near the deer crossing sign. He texted me when he got there, and I ran out from the bushes onto the road. Luckily, I could hear and see the car. Safety at last. When I got home, I went on YouTube and found the South Park scene. It just didn't seem funny to me anymore. Just creepy and weird.
When I was 16 years old, it was a very low point in my life, and I ended up getting hospitalized for 4 months over the summer. The doctors were afraid that my heart would give out even if I did so much as just walk, so if I wanted to go anywhere, I had to call a nurse to take me in a wheelchair. My mom and dad visited me every day, but not always together. Whenever my mom came alone, she would take me out in the wheelchair to the beach access behind the hospital so I could get some fresh air and look at the lake. One day, my mom had come by to visit, and she took me out to the beach as usual. While we were waiting for the elevator down from the ward, a man stopped my mom and me. "Your daughter has such beautiful black hair." The way he said it gave me the willies, kind of in a Buffalo Bill-esque, I want to wear it way. My mom thanked him and chatted for a bit, but I just looked the other way and ignored him. I could feel his eyes on me, though. We all pile into the elevator, and as soon as the doors close, I feel something tugging at my hair. I glance over and realize the guy's playing with my hair. I'm pretty creeped out here, but I don't want to cause a scene just in case he has a mental disorder and can't help himself. So I just lean over as far as I could in the wheelchair so that he couldn't reach me without alerting my mom. Anyway, we reach the bottom and get off, and my mom and I start wheeling over to the beach while the guy just stands by the elevator and watches us go. I told my mom what he did, and she said she'd make sure to do something if we ever saw him again. After that, we kept seeing him, always by the elevator. He'd make a comment about how beautiful my hair is, and my mom would nod politely. We'd go in the elevator, and he'd try to play with my hair, but my mom would always move in the way. And we'd get off, and he'd watch us roll out. Creepy, but we decided he was harmless. Until about a month later, we went down to the beach as usual, and this time we didn't see him at the elevator, but we didn't think much of it. At some point, my mom had to use the restroom, and it was mutually decided I was old enough to take care of myself for 3 minutes. I was sitting in the wheelchair looking out at the lake and enjoying the sun, when I started getting pushed. Thinking it was my mom, I turned around to ask for 5 more minutes. Nope. It was not my mom. It was the fucking guy. He's pushing me towards the bushes, and the look on his face is predatory. I scream, but the only other people out there are in a canoe out in the water, so I make a decision. I decide if I'm gonna die, I'd rather it be heart failure than this dude, so I get up out of the wheelchair and start legging it towards the restrooms. I look behind me to see if he's following, and fortunately, he's not. He's just standing by the wheelchair looking shocked. I guess he thought I was paralyzed. I make it back to my mom, who'd run out of the toilet upon hearing me screaming. We both look back and the guy's running away like he's got a rocket in his ass. My mom carried me on her back to the wheelchair, then we rushed to inform the hospital staff. They put a watch out, and for the rest of the month there's security hanging around the elevator on my floor, but he never came back. So, creep who preys on the sick and disabled, go fuck yourself, and I hope no one ever sees you again.
This is a story told to me by my uncle just a few days ago. While I'm positive I won't be able to tell it anywhere near as well as my uncle did, I'll do my best. Furthermore, I want to be clear that this is a true story, and while my uncle is a delightful person to listen to, he's not known to exaggerate or lie. He's lived a life interesting enough that he has no reason to. I'll tell it in the first person, but remember this is coming from my uncle, who is in his late 60s. In late winter, maybe spring of 1968, I was in my last semester at the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado, on my way to Vietnam as fast as I could get there. By that point, I was getting bored and I was really looking forward to graduating, and I took advantage of the increased leash we got as near graduates. A couple times a week, I would drive up to a spot I found by the Snake River and fished for a few hours in the afternoons. One Wednesday, I got to the spot around 2, parked the Jeep pretty close to the bank, and got to fly fishing. A few hours went by and I had caught myself a couple of dinky cutthroats, so I built myself a fire on the riverbank to cook them up for supper before rolling back to school by 9. I was sitting there by the fire, finishing up my second trout. Except for the river, it was quiet, and I was all by myself. I didn't see anything unusual, but this feeling of dread started to settle in, like something was wrong, or something bad was about to happen. I couldn't put my finger on what it was, but I felt almost sick to my stomach. I decided to stay alert and see if the feeling would pass. If it didn't, I knew I had a little .38 revolver on the passenger side seat of the Jeep, just in case. a fishing gun, you know? I kept picking at my trout, mostly listening for anything moving in the trees. A few minutes went by and the sick feeling was still sticking around. In fact, it just got worse. I thought maybe I'd sensed a cat stalking a white-tailed deer. They had mountain lions up there, and those bastards are dead silent on their feet, so I knew just because I didn't hear or see anything didn't mean it wasn't there. I got up, slowly, casually, got the .38 out of the Jeep, and loaded it. I sat down by the fire and put the .38 in my lap. I finished my trout and hustled to pack up and finally got myself out of there. 2 days later, on Friday, I went back out to that spot to get some fishing in around noontime. I fished for hours. I think I caught 3 trout that day. I was on the riverbank, already frying up the fish, when a game warden pulled up. I thought, oh no, they've got me now. You see, I hadn't bought a fishing license. I was going to be graduating and leaving, and I just didn't bother getting one. Now here's the game warden about to ask for my license, and I don't have one. I thought maybe I could turn on the charm and he might not give me a ticket, or at least let me go with a warning. He parked behind my Jeep and walked over. I said, "Hey there, I've got a trout here. Would you like to join us?" "Don't mind if I do." I chatted him up, but I think he could tell I was tense. I thought that things were going well. He's here and he's eating the evidence. "Are you from around here?" he asked. "No, sir. Upstate, Buffalo, New York. I'm down at the academy, graduating in May." "Do you mind if I take a look at your ID?" "Sure can," I said, and I handed him my student ID card. He handed it back. He looked out over the river and looked at me and said, "You get up here much?" "Sure, whenever I can. I've been up here a couple of days a week for a while. I was up here on Wednesday." His eyes sort of sharpened up and he frowned, looking at me. "Wednesday. Same spot?" "Yes, sir, same spot. I've gotten lucky with the trout here." "Say, what time do you think?" he asked. "Oh, I was here for a while. I left around 4 or 5. Creeped myself out, to tell you the truth. I kind of booked it out of here." 4 or 5, you say? Did you notice anything funny? See anything strange?" "No, sir. I didn't see anything, but I got a bad feeling and I had to run." He goes on to tell me, right around 6 o'clock on Wednesday, a game warden right on the other side of the river from where we were sitting had found a dead body. Freshly dead. They reckoned it had just happened. The man's ankles were bound and his hands were tied behind his back, and he was shot through the back of the head. He was bent like he was on his knees, like somebody had executed him. I never heard what happened after that, and what the outcome of that was. But this being 1968 outside Colorado Springs, I think it was an early drug trafficking hit. I think that was when people first started bringing large quantities of drugs to that area, so that's a story I've settled on for all these years. I think I must have heard or seen something that tipped me off, and I must have somehow perceived it when the body was being dumped. I didn't see anything that jumped out, but I think I must have felt it in my subconscious. I suspect that if I hadn't taken out that .38 and set it on my lap, something bad would have happened to me. And now, I always buy a fishing license.
I hope this story makes sense to all of you. I'm not an accomplished writer. I'm a little rusty, and this is my first post. So, back in my early 20s, I'm 33 now, I worked at an adult novelty store. I was used to creepers, and not much fazed me at this point in my brief employment. A typical day consisted of an array of colorful people, all of which I'm sure would make great entries. Especially the geriatric men that would come in and act like they had bad eyesight and have me read the directions on the back of penis enhancement creams to get cheap thrills. Gross, I know. After a while, you just learn to deal with these people and make them move on. Applying for this job, I was naive to the extent of the nut jobs I would have before me. This job was actually very character building in many ways. But enough about that. This particular day, I was working an all-day Sunday shift, so it's normal to have only but a handful of customers. So I was camped out in the desk chair inside the circle counter in the middle of the store, watching my Golden Girls box set on the television that hung above me. Typical Sunday. I'm assuming it was nearing 1 p.m. At the time, I happened to look out the glass store windows to see a red pickup pull into a parking space way far back in the lot. Strange, there were no cars but mine parked in front. The store is completely isolated except for a 7-Eleven caddy corner separated by an alleyway, so I was all alone. I see a skinny guy get out and start to slowly make his way to the storefront. He comes in and I greet him with a "hey," and he just stands there. I turn away from him enough to keep him in my peripheral, then he slowly proceeds to walk towards me. He makes his way up to the counter and I'm now facing him. He had bloodshot, watery eyes, dressed in baggy clothes and a cap. He hands me a wad of dirty, crumpled money and says in a monotone voice, "I found this in the parking lot. I want to give it to you in case someone wants to reclaim it." I said for him to keep it, because I didn't see him bend over in the lot to pick up anything on his way to the store. I also found it strange he parked so far away. I was onto him, but already getting creeped, I just wanted him to go away. He gave me a sick feeling. Considering the clientele, this was a big deal. He told me to take the money several times and was so persistent, wanting him to just get the hell out, I took the money. He then said to me, "Whatever you do, don't give it back to me." I said, "Okay." He starts to slowly walk out, and just as he reaches the door and I'm about to sigh my breath of relief, he turns and inches his way back towards me. "Can I have the money back?" he asks. "I thought you said you didn't want it," I replied. "I don't," he said. "Okay, I'll keep it here for safekeeping." That went on for a few solid minutes. I knew I was dealing with a real piece of work, and he kept trying to get behind me, and I was wheeling around in circles so I could face him at all times. His eyes were so intense and fixated on me the entire time. When he finally left, I was pretty shaken because he was so eerie. I looked down at the filthy, tattered, crumpled money and counted out 6 $1 bills. What the hell, I thought. But I shook it off as another day in the life at a sex shop. A couple hours go by, and I had swept all the previous weirdness under the rug. It was a slow day, and the store was dead. Then, lo and behold, in he slowly walks again. My heart sinks. I grab my phone, and he walks up to me and asks if anyone had come in to claim the money. I said no, and point to the money on the counter. Believe me when I say I did not want this money for myself. He then asked for it back. I said that I thought he told me not to give it back. I felt this was some sort of sick game I was involved in, and his character was so off-putting and unpredictable that I felt like I needed to play along. He then proceeds to beg me for the money and that he needed it really badly. So I broke and I handed it to him. His eyes burned into mine, his face expressionless and voice flat. "I told you not to give it back to me." I froze up. We just stared at each other and I was picturing gravestones in my head. It felt like an eternity. Then, ding dong, a couple walk in. That's when he grabs the $6 and leaves. I'm pretty sure something bad would have gone down if people hadn't come in. He never lunged at me, but there was something sinister about him. I told my coworker shortly after, and she said it happened to another girl that worked there too, but he didn't stick around because there were 2 people working. A completely different type of freak I was used to. I had another creepy incident with a man pleasuring himself in front of the glass windows at night after I'd locked the door. That one I had no questions to involve the police, and I quit. That was a weird little moment of my life. I have several stories I'd like to put on here. This one is a good tame one for me to break the ice. So, creepy menacing man with $6, let's not meet again.
Hey there guys, it's Blue Spooky, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. I also wanted to give a special thank you to LadySpook. She is the one I collaborated with in this video, and she's got a lot of good videos on her channel, so you guys should go check her out. I'll leave a link to her channel in the description below. If you guys liked it, then feel free to like and subscribe. And if you have any constructive feedback, please leave it in the comments below. If you have any stories that you want me to read or any stories that you'd like to send in, all my links to social media will be in the description below, and you can go ahead and send those to those places. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.